From under the Golden Dome in Charleston, this is the West Virginia Capitol Report.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the West Virginia Capitol Report. I'm Dave Perry, host, joined today by co-host Allison Taylor, president of the Fayette County Commission. We have two very special guests with us today. We are joined by the esteemed Mike Warner, Secretary of State, and the local County Clerk, Michelle Hawley. Welcome, folks, to the Capitol Report.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Mike, I guess I'll lead off here, if that's all right with you guys. Of course, the November election's coming up. And what kind of preparation goes into, or what kinds of things does your office or county clerks coordinate in preparation for the election?
Well, preparation for an election is an all-year process. So you're constantly looking at the voter registration lists, doing that sort of coordination. I'm coordinating with people at the national level, the National Association of Secretaries of State. I'm dealing with other secretaries and hearing what's working in their county, in their states, and what's not working, and then trying to bring that back to the local county clerks. And so I think this would be a good time to have Michelle talk about some of the preparations you do in your office.
Yeah, as the Secretary mentioned, it's a year-long process. You're always doing something to get ready for the next election. Right now, we're in the middle of training our poll workers, and we're working on absentee voting. Those are going out in the mail and stuff. So there's just a lot of preparation kind of stuff that we do and we get a ton of help from the Secretary of State's office. We're in constant contact with them, and it's a really good relationship.
I was just going to ask Michelle, what does the training entail? Because I know that you need lots of volunteers, and the training may be a deterrent. So
it is typically between an hour and a half. We go through the day of a poll worker, like where you need to go, what you have to do, and kind of just work through the day. So it's really fairly simple process. And we give them all the tools and all the materials and stuff that they're going to need to do that for. And volunteer, yes, but they do get paid.
Okay.
We do pay our poll workers for training and to come work on election day.
And we actually provide them with a continuing operations plan, something that is developed that talks about all the different contingencies that may come up. You may have a power outage. You may have an active shooter. You may have a threat to the officials. You may have election equipment that goes down. We go through all these different scenarios, and it's all in a book that's compiled that the counties provide to the poll workers. And basically, if you have a situation, you can look there and get the information, know who to contact, everything from the big folks, FBI and state police and that sort of thing, down to somebody, a local, we have liaison officers basically throughout the state, 240 some that we can contact. So if I get a report from Fayette County that says a certain precinct is down, how do I know if that's for real, if it's a hoax or whatever? So I can go right to the county clerk. Maybe she doesn't know. She hasn't been to that specific precinct. So we can call somebody that's working, a local person with the city, with the county, and they can verify, yes, the power is out or there's a gas leak. We had that situation in one scenario. So we go through those kind of scenarios with the poll workers so they're ready for whatever happens. I wanted to go back to the question you asked about the preparation. Right. One of the things that we're doing at the national level is working with the Help America Vote Act, where Congress has provided us money, and then we're getting it out to the counties to update our voting equipment. So you hear these concerns about it was Dominion voting equipment. We don't use any of that in West Virginia. Connect now is the big thing that's being talked about, where some people, I think in California, may have shared data with China and put it on China servers. That's what we don't use that. Okay, so I want to assure the people of West Virginia that our equipment, we are using the best in the United States. Over 75% of the people in West Virginia use this, the Express Vote system. It's an electronic marking device. Okay, it eliminates a lot of the human error that can happen on a paper ballot. Let's return to paper ballots. Folks, there are a lot of ways you can mess up a paper ballot. Like an ACT test, if it says mark 1, what if somebody marks 2? You've just invalidated the vote. An electronic marking machine won't let you do that. So we're using the best system. We've gone from 75%, we're heading towards 80, 90%, and that's what we're doing right now, is working with the clerks to make sure that they know how to use it so they can train the poll workers on it.
Right, and I know we have to test it. The commissioners have to go in and test them.
Yes.
And that's open to the public. The public, if they have questions about things being connected to the internet or any of these other conspiracy theories, you can come and watch you all do that testing to make sure that it doesn't connect to the internet. And it is zeroed out. It is ready for election day.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Of course, I had to think of the hanging chads when you were talking about this, those ballots.
Well, and that came up in the 2000 election, and that's when the first HAVA grant came out, and they had people buying the Dominion voting machines, or it was a paper ballot but was inside the machine. The voter didn't get to see it. We use a voter verified paper trail. So right now with the express vote system, you get that ballot back out and you can see if the machine marked your votes correctly. If you didn't, you can invalidate it and get another one. I haven't had any experiences of that happening. But then the voter gets to put that into the tabulator, so you know that your vote is getting counted. So I love the system, and we're not hearing problems with that anywhere in the United States. So I'm really proud that we're going in that direction.
Mike, as the legislature created 100 delegate districts in the West Virginia House of Delegates, what kind of changes had to be made? And even in terms of precinct assignment.
Sure.
And I'll make this a three-part question. If I'm in doubt as to what precinct I vote in, what's the mechanism, or how can I validate and find out where I'm going to vote?
Well, Michelle Holly is where you go to talk about that. You can also go to our website, govotewv.com, and all things election related are on that website. But the single member districts was something that ties that person to their local precinct and a delegate, okay? Whereas before we had, like in Montague County, you had 5 delegates, but they represented the entire county. How would you know who to go to with your specific problem on a road or a gutter or a water system? So the single member districts is solving that problem, and this is the first general election where that's going to happen. And that caused a lot of issues for the clerks to get those lines drawn and notify the people and let you know if your precinct changed. So again, if you want to address some of that, Michelle, what you went through.
We had a lot of challenges with that. Let's just say that with getting those precincts drawn to match those legislative lines that they drew, and getting it all done in a much shorter time frame than we really should have had because the census data was so delayed coming in. But we did get it done. We were done well ahead of when we had to be done, so that was great. And again, lots of help from Secretary of State's office on that end too.
Well, what Michelle's referring to is kind of the perfect storm. Every 10 years is the census, and the U.S. government was 8 months late in providing that to us, so we couldn't provide that to the clerks until 8 months later, which really jammed things up against that primary. And then they had to work with the county commissions in drawing the precincts and getting everything right. And we were also using GIS mapping, which is a very precise, use it from WVU. And so sometimes these lines went between a mailbox and the house, okay, that kind of precision. And the clerks have to resolve that with the county commissions, working with the county commissions. I know it was a lot of work on you guys throughout the state.
It was, and part of the reason the census data was so important, obviously, is that the districts have to be well balanced. And in a county with the geographic size of Fayette counties, we had a great difficulty in both making the districts match the constituency within those districts and ensuring that they were sufficiently populated to qualify as a district. And Michelle worked really hard on that. In fact, she worked with the mayors of Montgomery and Smithers on a recommendation that we heard at the commission, and a couple of commissioners walked in and worked with her on how we might move the lines to make it. Our goal was to make it more consistent with the people who live in that district, so they were represented by somebody who lives among them and who understands what their issues are, kind of like you were saying with the legislature, because we didn't have that in this county before.
And so sometimes we had a situation where with a new line drawn, that person now is driving miles to go to their precinct, whereas before it was across the street. And so that causes a lot of consternation that comes back to the local officials that you all now have to deal with. So there's still some of that that's going on around the state.
There is, and then identifying the polling places in counties as remote as this one, to find a building that's handicapped accessible and that has running water and septic. Even just those challenges alone were difficult for us.
And I understand, there are still some counties doing some tweaking, and hats off to our commission president, Ms. Taylor, and our clerk. We're ready to roll, but I understand there's still some tweaking going on, Mr. Secretary.
There is one county where some people have to drive 18 miles to get to the polling place in remote areas of the state. and that's difficult. And so the county commission is having to deal with this. Very sympathetic to county clerks and county commissions are having to deal with this, but it's required that we do, like you said, balance it and get the best plan possible. But it's also very important to listen to the voters, and we don't want to make it difficult. We always want to make it easy to vote.
Right, absolutely. So voter registration drives, how's registration doing this time around?
We have had nearly 100 voter registration drives right in the month of September. September is voter registration month, and we had a voter registration day. We went out to a number of high schools. In the month of September alone, we registered over 5,000 new voters here in the state of West Virginia. So we've registered over 87,000 high school students since I've been in office working with the county clerks. And the county clerks just do a wonderful job where they take the machines out sometimes to the schools, let the high school students experience that voting. We like to draw the analogy to, if you can order a wrap at Sheetz, okay, or a milkshake, okay, you can vote. Okay, it's the same sort of technology, touch screen, getting your, seeing what you ordered, that sort of thing. And that starts to draw the students in, and then we have them vote for their favorite dog or their favorite beach or their sports teams, that sort of thing. And so once they've tried it once, now they're not as scared to go into the...
that was Marshall University, correct?
You got that.
I doubt.
What have you done here in Fayette County?
We have had 2 high school voter registration drives. We did 2 of the 3 schools. The third school does their own situation. And great attendance at both of them, and really engaged civics teachers. And it's really great to get out into the community and tell people about the importance of voting.
And we bring in the great legacy that West Virginia has in getting 18-year-olds the right to vote. And we talk about Senator Jennings Randolph and the 26th Amendment. And that was not an easy thing that he got accomplished. He fought for 29 years, put it up 11 times, 10 times it failed. But finally, at the end of the Vietnam War, he talks about over 600,000 people got drafted during that 29-year period. 200,000 didn't come home alive. So when you start making it a personal story with the people of West Virginia, and the first person registered to vote was Ella Mae Thompson, 18-year-old student at Davis and Elkin College. Her brother had been killed in Vietnam, never had a right to vote. Then it's not just getting 18-year-olds the right to vote, but it also translates into getting people involved in the civic process. And the youngest legislator ever elected in the history of West Virginia, in the history of the United States, was Sarah Blair from right here in West Virginia. And the youngest African American ever elected in the history of the United States to state office, Caleb Hanna from right here in West Virginia.
I know Caleb.
That ties people to, well, if they can do it at 18, 19 years old, I can too. So that's how we pull people in.
Absolutely. Now, what's the deadline for registering to vote?
Michelle, when is it?
It's October the 18th, so next
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay.
They can come into my office anytime between now and then. They can go online, as he said, to govotewv.com to register. If you happen to be at the DMV, you can register through the DMV as well.
Just whatever.
Fill out a form too, right? Mail it in.
And
So-
what she has said is universal throughout the state of West Virginia, in each county,
Exactly.
through their county clerk. But you talked a few minutes ago, and President Taylor mentioned voter registration. And of course, you registered voters, but by the same token, you have a mission or obligation to ensure that everyone that's voting is alive and not on a tombstone somewhere. So what's been done, or what has to happen with that, Mike?
We've joined, West Virginia's joined the Electronic Registration Information Center, short name is ERIC, and that is 31 states now belong to that, and we share data. And so right now, can't talk specifics about investigations, but we have ongoing investigations where people voted in West Virginia and other states. And so when that happens, you're not allowed to vote twice. We're going to prosecute that. So we take election integrity very seriously. But that is the way that we go about it, is to share information with other states to make sure that they are only voting, and everybody that votes once, it gets counted, and that's it.
You know, I found a lot of people believe you can have dual citizenship in states just like you can in some countries. And I think some people honestly think, because I had somebody ask me, how do I register to vote here and in South Carolina? I said, you can. You cannot. But I think we're wrapping up this segment, Dave.
Absolutely, yes. And Allison, Michelle, Mike, thank you, and we'll take a break and be right back with more from the Secretary of State, Mike Warner.
Stay tuned. The West Virginia Capitol Report will be right back. From under the Golden Dome in Charleston, this is the West Virginia Capitol Report.
Welcome back to the Capitol Report, where we're talking today with Mike Warner, Secretary of State, and I'm joined by Fayette County Clerk Michelle Hawley and the President of the Fayette County Commission, Allison Taylor. Allison, when we left, we were talking a little bit about security.
Well, we were talking about what happens if you try to cheat the system, but I know you have measures in place also to prevent people from cheating the system.
We do. We have two programs. One that's been around for a little while, and that's the See Something, Say Something. And so that's just the typical old-fashioned, you see something, pick up the phone and call, and that's 877-FRAUD-WV. We've had that in place for a while. So if somebody feels they're being intimidated or there's some campaigning that's going on too close to the precinct, those sorts of things. But what West Virginia has done now is we've stepped out in front of the country, and we're leading in the next area, and that is See Something, Text Something. And so everybody that has one of these mobile phones is an extension of our investigations division. So all you have to do is take a picture, you can text it in very quickly, and we have 10 investigators. When I came in office, we only had 2. We've increased to 10 across the state, and then all of my team is out on election day throughout the state, and I know the clerks are very tuned into this as well. So if you have an issue, call us, text us, just let us know, and we will get on it. We can have somebody there very quickly. And so we've formed a task force with the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the state police, the local police, the sheriff, all the way down. And so whatever is the appropriate agency or the fastest one to get to this situation, we take election integrity very seriously. And again, we're leading the nation. Other states now are looking at our model and duplicating what we're doing.
Well, and I know the prosecutor, I'm a former prosecutor myself, assistant prosecutor, and I know that our offices would stay open on election day throughout the state in case any legal issues came up or if anybody was being challenged or intimidated at the polls or anything like that also. That was another measure in place. But your text number, for people like me who don't like to talk on the phone, is you text WV to the number 45995. Did I get that right? And it sounds like you can attach any evidence you have about...
You can touch a statement, a picture, whatever you want. It's a very user-friendly form. Just quickly name, address, who, when, how, where, why, that sort of thing.
Give the specifics. Well, it sounds like we're in good shape there. What were you going to say, Dave?
No. Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, getting to Election Day, and when is Election Day this year?
November 8th, Tuesday, November 8th, less than 4 weeks.
Okay, and then early voting is when?
That is October 26th, November 5th, and that includes 2 Saturdays.
Okay, so there's 2 Saturdays when you can early vote, and then early voting goes all the way up until 3 days before Election Day, and then you have all day Election Day. And if you can't make it to the polls, what are your options?
You want to take that one?
Sure. So if you are perhaps elderly or you get sick and you're not able to get out anytime during those 10 days of early voting or on election day, you can request an absentee ballot from my office. There's an application that you fill out and sign, and then we send out your ballot to you at your home. Those have been going out now since September the 23rd. We've sent about 130 or so applications out and received about half those ballots back so far.
Good.
And that you can request those up until November the 2nd.
Now, what if I don't know I need to vote absentee until it gets close to the wire? What if I get sick?
Yeah. So if you get sick the day before Election Day and you chose not to vote early voting, you can call our office, the county clerk. We are open always, all day Election Day. And we have an emergency absentee voting where we actually send 2 emergency voting commissioners to your home or to the hospital where you're sick to help to bring your ballot to you to vote on Election Day.
Right.
We've had a couple people each election kind of take advantage of that if they had just not early voted or anything.
Right,
to that.
and that's more for last minute hospitalizations or something more severe, right? And isn't that county specific? Don't the county commissions vote on whether to offer that?
Right. I wanted to back up with the absentee voting. The legislature has provided 11 different reasons for people to vote absentee. If you're in the military, if you already have a vacation plan, if you're out of state on work, those sorts of things. And so if you fit one of those, don't wait until November 2nd. Go ahead and put it in right now. Michelle would much rather have that application
I
right now.
voted absentee here for 7 years.
There you go.
in the
So
Air Force,
if you meet one of those 11 reasons, get that application in right now. And again, you can go to the clerk, you can call, you can get at govotewv.com. That's the easiest place to do it, and fill out the application there, and we'll get it to the county clerk. So,
Mike, I know you've done an admirable job of ensuring that everyone at least will have the opportunity. And I know that you focused somewhat, maybe a year or so ago, on military personnel. And I think you were one of the first to institute something there that will allow our military to vote easily.
We were. West Virginia, again, led the nation. So many times you hear about West Virginia being the last. Here we are in the elections arena, leading the nation with the work of the county clerks and the county commissions. So what the legislature allowed us to do was to allow people to vote electronically. That's using a mobile device. And it worked so well in 2018 with the military and our overseas citizens, they then expanded it to voters with certain physical disabilities. So if you physically can't get to a poll, or you can't vote a secret ballot because of a certain disability, then they're allowed to also vote using a mobile device.
Really?
And then they've extended it now to first responders. This is the first time this election that we're going to allow first responders. So give you an example, a couple years ago, Mississippi had a hurricane that hit just days before the election. We sent line workers down there, people with the electric lines, so forth, and they had lost their opportunity to vote because it was too late. It was after, like this time, November 2nd, and it was too close to the election, so they lost their ability to vote. So that's what this allows you to do, is the county clerk can turn that on, let them vote electronically. My brother's roommate from West Point, Shane Kimbrough, was the commander of SpaceX, okay, on the space station. How's he going to vote? The U.S. Postal Service doesn't deliver up there, but he can vote using this. So again, West Virginia's leading the nation, and now a number of states are copying what we're doing.
And of course, you have a son at West Point, I understand, and you're a West Point graduate.
We've and they've now already voted.
Oh, okay.
So, yes.
Nice. Well, it's definitely more efficient than how it was in probably your day and my day, when you had to fill out the paper and make sure you mailed it in time, and especially with so many troops deployed right now overseas, that slows things down
I
quite
had
a
trouble
bit.
voting when I was in Afghanistan. All 4 of my children have had difficulty voting as they've been on deployments, and that's why I've been such a champion to get people to be able to vote.
Yeah, I think that's great, because it's, you know, the people serving the country and protecting the Constitution really ought to be able to exercise that constitutional right.
Exactly.
No, I laud you on that. I think that's great. So when Election Day comes, what are some of the things we can expect?
Well, it's a long day for those poll workers. They're up at 5:30, polls open at 6:30, and it's a long day, but they do get paid for it, as we've talked about. And they go in prepared, they make sure the machines are all turned on, everything's lined up. And from my office's perspective, we start getting our people out as well at 6:30 in the morning. Everybody has an assigned county or two that they go to throughout the state. All 55 counties are covered, and we try to get every precinct. I can't guarantee that we do, but they hit as many precincts as they can. And sometimes that surprises some of those poll workers. So, like, we've never seen somebody here before, but our office, along with the county clerk's offices, we're covering down to make sure that if there are any issues, we're on top of it.
Get there. And you mentioned poll workers. I know that one of the issues we had in Fayette County this year was we needed subs. We had a whole family back out at the last minute, about 5 or 6 people. They called, signed up together, volunteered together, and withdrew together at the last minute, and we were trying to figure out how to shuffle and accommodate that. What are some of the remedies when that happens? Like, what if they didn't make it to the training?
Well, we'll start with the best way to get onto a poll worker list is to go through your county executive committee, a Republican, Democrat, whatever, let them know, and then they submit the names to the county clerk.
Right.
But county clerks, as you just mentioned, something happens at the last minute, you don't have to go through the executive committee and all that. That's where the clerks would like to have extra substitutes ready to go. The one I like to use is, we had a situation a couple years ago where a woman delivered a baby the night before the election who had volunteered to be a poll worker. I don't expect her to show up to be a poll worker that day, so you have to be able to go to
send her an
these.
emergency ballot too, probably.
There you go. So that's where we just love to have the county clerks, and the county clerks love to have those substitutes ready to go. So if anybody's interested, the only requirement is they have to be 18, they have to be a registered voter, and they can volunteer to be a poll worker.
So, Mike, you talked about Republican and Democrat poll workers. And what about independents? How do they plug in as a poll worker? Or what's the balance, or what type of balance has to be maintained in terms of Republican, Democrat, or balance?
You want to address that?
Sure. So the main, Anyone, as Mr. Warner said, if you are a registered voter, and the other requirement, you have to read and write English, which I would hope would happen. That's the only requirements. Now, if someone is not affiliated with a party or affiliated with one of the minor parties in the state, they are certainly welcome to be poll workers. The only thing we do is we try to keep people of opposite party doing jobs together. So the two clerks that sit at the table and take your ID, look at your ID, and let you sign your name in the book. We would want to have a Democrat and a Republican, or a Republican and a nonpartisan, or an independent and a Democrat. So that's the only thing we kind of try to look at to keep those numbers, to make it fair for everyone.
So independents can fill in anywhere.
Correct, yes,
They
they
can.
can fill in either position, yeah.
And God bless them, because we needed them
Yes.
we needed them during the primary for sure, because
and
we
we
had
have.
some folks drop out on us. So there's something unique about, in my view, about this election, in that we have 4 constitutional amendments on the ballot. I mean, it's rare in a state election to find constitutional amendments on the ballot, period, but to have 4. What are those 4 amendments about?
I'm really glad you asked that, because this is a situation where we really want people preparing before they go into the polling booth. If the first time you're seeing these amendments is when you walk in,
Right.
1, you're going to be a little confused. 2, you're going to hold people up. You know, it's going to cause longer lines and that sort of thing. And these are very important amendments. So the first deals with impeachment. You know, a couple years ago we went through the Supreme Court impeachment situation. And the issue is whether it's a separation of powers situation. Do we want judges deciding their own fate? Let's say you're impeaching the Supreme Court, or do you want the legislature deciding that? And so that's what that issue is about.
Right.
There you go.
Folks, you know, it's been very informative. Secretary of State Mike Warner, we appreciate you. You've always been available to identify issues in the process for voting. And Allison, Michelle, thank you for today's program. And thank you for watching the Capitol Report, and join us next week.
This has been the West Virginia Capitol Report.